they were doing that. When America went over there, then this stuff begins. It's televised and it's all over the news media. And they would call our soldiers murderers. What kind of pathetic idiot would call a soldier that's defending, going over there fighting for America?
I want to point out some irony there, Steve, is that then, my dad, his buddy, I've heard my dad refer, that he got off the plane and they would, they would call them baby killers. And those were the liberals back in the day. And now, like I said, today it's just crazy town. Now, the conservatives are the ones standing there at the abortion clinics, actually condemning baby killers, and the left is going nuts over it.
Yeah.
It is all just, maybe it is confusion.
It is. If it's not my view, then it's not a good view. That is the way they look at it. Mm-hmm. Nancy Pelosi, when Donald Trump was elected, said there would be blood in the streets, and she called for blood in the streets. They have these Roman plays where like they're assassinating the Senate's assassinating Julius Caesar. Well, in reality, they've done the same thing with Obama. They went in and they had someone dress up like Obama, and they went in, and again, President Obama was the president of the United States. I will never attack the office of the president of the United States. I disagree with his views, but that office of the president of the United States commands respect. And America has slipped away from that. I'm Republican. I'm conservative. I don't think that Democrats are the enemy. I do not believe that. Mm-hmm. I believe that people that try to invoke and enforce their views on me, they turned themselves into my enemy. I did not turn them into my enemy.
Right.
But I believe that office, now they done the same play with President Obama, but it was not as graphic. Mm-hmm. It was not just constantly over and over stabbing with knives and mutilating the body like they did with President Trump. And then for this, what was her name? This lady CNN did, and they did because it was going to cost them a little bit of finances, I'm sure.
Oh, I should know this.
Griffin.
Kathy Griffin, yeah. Mm-hmm.
A mask like she was holding the head of Donald Trump with blood all over it. Now, back to the Vietnam era. People say, well, that does not incite violence. The protester was locked up inside of a human body during World War I, during World War II, and during the Korean War. People did not really know what was going on over there because the video cameras wasn't there. As soon as the video cameras were there in Vietnam, the protester come out. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. I mean,
it brought the protester out. So it was there. It was doing no harm. It was not walking around with signs calling our military personnel murderers and baby killers and stuff. It was there, but it didn't manifest itself. The video cameras brought it out, and it manifested itself in the Vietnam War. Now, if that is the truth, and it is, then you have people that are violent on the inside, and they have not manifested that violence yet. But then when you have Nancy Pelosi stand up and say there will be blood in the streets, and then you have politicians that stand up and call for people, basically calling for violence.
Oh, yeah. And
calling for people to not just to come together and vote. That is democracy, but coming together to incite violence. And then you have Kathy Griffin holding a head of Donald Trump that looks beheaded. Then you have who was that? Is it Snoop Dogg or one of those that done like they were assassinating
the president?
The president.
And then his nephew came on and threatened the first lady because, they were talking, it had made such an uproar. So, yeah.
So, that will manifest violence. It will, if there's violence locked up I believe that a lot of the songs that were out during the 80s, I believe that it brought a lot of violence, and I believe that. I believe that some video games are harmful to children.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you, Steve, that actually, there have been leakers that came out. That's the whole MTV, rap started out in a completely different way. It was fun. It was, and you said it before, music, can be very powerful. And so it was weaponized. And what it was made to do was, again, like you said, get into the people's minds. They were conditioned. This is, and I'll put some more of those links. People from the music industry have literally come out and said, hey, I believe that there was coercion with, if I remember, Steve, there was coercion with these privately held prisons because they needed a population. How do you do that? You get kids indoctrinated into the thug gang lifestyle. It absolutely destroyed the African American community's family unit, because it's not seen, you're not respectable if you go home to a family and you support the family. And once you destroy the family unit, that's one of the legs on the table. Everything else is going to fall.
Yeah, it sure is. I would challenge everyone out there. And I've asked this question. I've had people come to me before and they've questioned me about a doctrine and a standard of what I call and the Bible calls holiness. And I tell them, and here's my answer to them. If Jesus come to this earth and he was going to choose a woman to be his wife, a natural woman, and he was going to get married, and he's not going to do that, and he did not do that.
Right.
But we'll play like, suppose he did come to this earth to choose a natural woman to be his wife. Picture in your mind what you think she would look like. I never tell anybody. I do not lead people and say, this is what I think. And then my next reply is, he did come to the earth and chose a bride. It is the church. And that's what he expects her to look like. Whatever picture you have in your mind, where little is known, little is required, but where much is known, much is required. Whatever picture you have in your mind, that's what he requires of his church.
That's really good, Steve. That's good.
And I tell people, and I'll pose another question to the audience, right, tonight. That is, if the media and the politicians that call for blood in the street and our celebrities that are out there pretending like they're assassinating the President of the United States, you don't even have to say the President's name. Doing that to any president is wrong. Now, if that does not incite violence in people, then let your children play these scary video games and these video games that have murder in them and stuff. And I'm not talking about let them do it in doses. Let them do it all they want to, if it does not incite violence. If music does not incite violence, if what you hear and what you see does not incite violence, then allow your children to listen to the very these songs that have a lot of killing and manslaughter and butchering people in them, and let them listen to that all the time. Let them watch these scary movies all the time. Let them play the video games, and that is all they see in front of them. Do you think that would change your child? And the answer, and I'll lead people on this one, the answer for sure is yes.
Oh.
But it's the same, it's the same group of people right now that will say, yeah, not everybody, but the same group of people, a small number, will say, well, absolutely it will. And just because you say absolutely it will, don't mean that you think that the news media and these celebrities don't incite violence. But if you think that would incite violence in your children, don't turn around and say, no, Nancy Pelosi calling for blood in the street will not incite violence. Snoop Dogg, Kathy Griffin will not incite violence. Sure, it does.
Well, Steve, there. I don't know if you've heard. You had mentioned you've been kind of busy, but there. I believe it was CNN. I heard the talk, but I think it was Wolf Blitzer, if I'm not mistaken. He basically, the liberal media is alluding to, that this guy, what was the shooter, that the one that shot the congressman, and he, I think his name was James Hodgkins. He was a Bernie Sanders supporter. He was supposedly very, whacked out, and the chatter now is that I can actually link, and I will, underneath the media player, a tweet from back in April where they mentioned how, if you want to, I guess that these Republicans were vulnerable right there. And that they even mentioned the plainclothes special service agents that would be there. All of this, and this was back in April, Steve. And the thing about Scalise, and which even goes, he was hot on the track of pedophilia. He was digging up, and and again, I'm not pointing fingers, and I'm not calling everybody who is a Democrat or considers themselves a liberal. I'm not grouping everybody in this, but there's a trend, and the spirit cooking, the child pedophilia, the pornography, child pornography, and it's a pattern, just like you would see with a serial killer, or just that serial person. They all fit the same pattern. Am I wrong there?
You're absolutely right. People have, if they're violent. Now, this man, I don't believe they found any records of any mental illness.
Right.
Which is scary. If he would have come out and they would have said, yes, it's mental illness or something.
Wait a minute, Steve. I think actually there was proof he had a big Bernie Sanders sign or something. No, I'm just picking. I'm sorry. I was just picking.
No, you're correct. Yeah, that speaks for itself, don't it?
He found the burn. But anyway, go ahead. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was just being a little lighthearted there, but.
Well, you're right. But if they had medical records that showed that, it would. It's still terrible, and it doesn't take away from that.
Right.
But this was just 100% politically motivated. And when you have politicians that come out and incite violence and say there's going to be blood in the street, and you have these celebrities that come out and do these things, I believe it almost puts it in people's minds that, hey, I've got somebody in Washington that's going to be on my side if I do this. I've got money, people with big, powerful names in Hollywood, or I've got billionaires that's going to help get me out of trouble if I do this.
Well, and even more than that, Steve, is they, again, see the video footage of these people in masks throwing urine and beating people and assaulting people and cussing them, everything they can do, and the police standing by and not jerking these people up.
Do you want to make a few people mad right now?
I don't want to make you uncomfortable. You take it where you want to take it, Steve.
This will make some people mad. And if it does, they need a little prayer.
I understand.
One thing that started this is, again, I am not attacking any of the presidents that we had attacking the office. I disagree on policy.
Yeah.
But President Barack Obama and presidential nominee, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, failed, and even John Kerry, they failed to come out against these people targeting policemen, and they would never speak against that. They would never come out in support of our military. They would never come out and support every